Hello, this is Dan Farisi, Group Director of Content and Editorial, Industrial and Tech here at Emerald, joined by my friend David Labuskes, CEO of AVIXA. We recently learned that at the end of 2026, Mr. Labuskes is going to be retiring after a long decade-plus tenure leading AVIXA. We wanted to hear directly from him a little bit about his legacy, his contributions, how he wants to be remembered as the leader of AVIXA. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining me. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and reflect on everything you've done over the past decade plus.
Thanks, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. It's amazing
Well,
what I
let,
have to do to get somebody to want to talk to me, huh?
well, let's get right into it because there is a lot to go over. I do want to just start with kind of reflecting on your journey a bit. When you look back at your tenure as CEO of Avixa, are there particular moments, particular milestones that stand out to you as being most meaningful, whether on a professional level, on a personal level, things you really hold close to your heart and will always remember?
The day I was offered the job, uh, I had gone through probably 8, 9 months of interviews. I don't know how many rounds. But the interview was sort of early day, a couple hours, kind of a final interview, and was driving home from Northern Virginia. Picked up my young son from daycare or school, and we were driving home, and a call came through from Greg Jeffries saying that he wanted to offer me the position, but I was in this like dead zone for my cell. And
Oh man.
so I hear this like, Dave, uh, Jeffries, uh, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been waiting for months for this call. And I, so I'm like, Greg, if that's you, it sounds like it's you. Give me 3 minutes. I'll be at the top of a hill and we should be able to hear each other. And so we drove, and then um, I was able to hear him and received the offer and thanked him. And, uh, the next step was to like work through all the contracting and stuff. But what was really cool was that Landon was next to me in the car. And so when we hang up, and he looks at me with this big grin, and we like high five each other. And then I'm like, should we tell mom, or should we just let it go? And I know you're in the midst of parenting some young kids, and you probably can really relate to that moment and the serendipity of being able to share it with them as it happened. Uh, that's the start. There was a moment early in the AVIXA Women's Council in India that involved some really a reinforcement of why we needed to have an AVIXA Women's Council, why it's grown, I think why it's so important for the industry and for our community. And it was, this challenge of why are we doing this? Why don't we have an AVIXA, left-handers council? And why don't we have an AVIXA, you know, brown-eyed persons council, that type of
Right.
an argument. And the power of the women in the room and the manner with which they managed and handled that was extraordinary for me to experience. Um, God, the tragic news about Brad Sousa
Mm.
and the amazing impact, and then a sense of opportunity and responsibility that come with this role when something like that happens in the industry, and
Absolutely.
the pride that the foundation should take, and the sort of the sense of is, happiness is the wrong word, but the ability to talk with Brad's family and let them know from a perspective that they didn't live, how much impact Brad had, um, and to be able to share and hearing what an amazing grandfather and husband and father he was.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing, and there's three off the top of my head,
Yeah.
moments. But if you want, I mean, I've got a year left. We could do this every 2 days, and I could give you another three moments. It's just been such a blessing of a position.
I can believe it, and it brings you again from the highest highs to the lowest lows when you do have very somber responsibilities as a senior leader in the industry. But you've been with us through it all, and I love the fact that you have been such a champion for diversity, for a progressive mindset in the industry, not just following the models of the past, but embracing the vision of the future. You mentioned the Women's Council, the Diversity Council. Do you feel like your efforts, the entire AVIXA community's efforts, have made meaningful change with the councils and otherwise in the industry overall and the society in which the industry exists?
This is Steve Jobs has said, "Let's make a dent in the universe," or that was his purpose. I don't know to say that I've made a difference or in the profession or in the society. I have an individual on my team that, we have this ongoing conversation, and it's essentially that perfect being the enemy of good or good being the enemy of perfect, and how we should solve this problem. And I tend to be somewhat of a pragmatic idealist, and it's sort of this, well, we can't fix global warming until we pick up all of the trash in our front yard, so let's just start there
Yeah,
and let's set that as a goal. And that doesn't mean we're going to give up on the bigger vision, but let's do what we can do today, um, and then encourage others to do that. And let's see where that goes.
yeah,
And I think I think we're doing a pretty good job of picking up the trash in our front yard when you start to look at some of the incremental changes that are there. I would also challenge it's so little. It's already like the announcement went out a couple of days ago, right? And now so many people are giving me so much credit for so many different things. And you know, I had almost I had so little to do with all of those accomplishments. It's a team of people, and then in particular with the councils and that diversity, it's the leadership of those councils. It's volunteers. It's people like you reinforcing and magnifying and amplifying their voices. Um, it's our community encouraging and pushing it forward. Uh, there's so much that's happened over this decade. Yeah, I've been the guy that's had this title on my business card, but it's you guys, the industry that's made this happen, that's done this, that shows up. Um, to Beyond that, yes, I do think it's making a difference. I do think and it may just be, um, it's certainly unscientific when I make this statement, but when I walk around one of our events, when I look at who's influencing our industry, absolutely not anecdotal. When I look at the governance and the leadership of the association from a board perspective, from a leadership search committee, the committee chairs, from the executive team of the VIXA itself, um, we've certainly made progress. I don't think this is one of those things that is ever done. I
mhm,
think the world continues to demand focus on ensuring we have the best creative minds in a room. And from one of the earliest uh, quotes of me as a CEO, using my philosophy that I've had since I entered the design world, which is you can't have innovative solutions without diversity in the room
mhm,
focused on the problem, and of all types, not just demographic diversity, but experiential diversity, the contextual diversity, expertise. It's amazing what happens when you put a biologist and a chemist and an architect and a technologist in a room to solve a problem. Uh,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to ramble on. I have to
I,
stop.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. Having that diversity of thought, diversity of lived experiences in the room is inevitably going to lead to a better outcome. So let's talk a little bit about the rebrand to AVIXA, which took place in 2017, if I remember. Certainly a pivotal moment. Can you share a little bit about the thought process behind the change, what you think it has meant to the association and to the industry as a whole over these last almost 10 years now, really embracing the experience?
Yeah. One of the more risky moves that I've made in my career. Um, the at one point, so I'll go back to a family story. We were having dinner one night. My son at that point was probably 10th or 11th grade. Somebody else in the industry had quote unquote resigned that day, and I was talking with Barbara about that. And, he's going to spend more time with family and friends, kind of thing that we all have heard. And hopefully, in some cases, it's actually a true summation of why the change is made. But in this case, it was clearly not. And at some point, Landon leaned forward and he's like, are you ever going to get fired? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that the board's pretty happy with me. I think I'm doing an okay job. And then I paused. I'm like, but you don't have to worry. Like, mom and I have been saving since you were born. We've got you covered for college. We're okay. We're not going to go hungry or be homeless. I'll find another position if that happens. And then my wife leaned forward and she's like, you know, if this AVIXA thing goes sideways, your dad's unemployed. And because this was like a week or two before we made the announcement.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the personal part of it. The sort of the really important part of it is that if Infocom is fabulously informative of part of what we do, and is a great representative brand for our events around the world. But anywhere I went around the world and I asked, well, how's Infocom doing for you? The best answer I would get was, do you mean the association or the show? Usually what I got was, Infocom is great. I was in Vegas in 2010 and I met this person there. And nobody really connected Infocom to the certifications and the standards and the training and most importantly, the community of our industry. And we needed to be. And we needed to be in order to feed that and to grow it and to be a catalyst for its strengthening. And if you go way back in the time machine, it started with me saying to Dan Goldstein, I want you to make the Infocom logo look like something that isn't stuck in the 1980s. And he came back to me and said, I can't do that. I have to change the name and rebrand the entire organization. And I was like, well, we're not going to do that. And, he and I went back and forth for close to a year. And in the end, there was no choice, in my opinion, in order to truly support the industry moving forward, because the industry truly was moving from delivering value by facilitating information communications into an evolving, so much more rich opportunity of being an industry that delivered experiences and connected human beings to each other, not communicated information, but connected human beings to each other.
Yeah.
And we do have a responsibility as the association for the industry to both support the industry as well as to challenge and in some ways attempt to lead or provide opportunity, sort of point like there, look over there. Like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily our job to tell you what to do as a participant in the industry. In fact, it's certainly not our job to do that, but it is our job to say, hey, look on the other side of that mountain and see what's over there because we took a peek and it looks pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, so then that meant what's important is that information communications, we were beginning to, man, we've had it. If there's an unaccomplished goal, it's that that I'm going to still end up at some point this year talking about the convergence of AV and IT. Um,
I
but
wonder if that's ever going to happen. What do you think?
I doubt it. I'm certainly not going to wait until it happens before I retire. Um, we needed to lean in on AV, which is the audiovisual part of the name. And if you really focus in on where the value is being delivered, it was the experience piece. Honestly, the integrated experience, part of the importance of having integrated in there was because so many of our community identified themselves as integrators.
Mhm.
I wanted to make it easier to accept this. And then we're not a for-profit company. We're not a shareholder-driven company looking to build wealth. And I think it's important to highlight that in your name. We are an association. We exist to benefit the industry. And so the name felt real. It felt authentic. And that was the test. Frankly, that's my test for almost every decision I make, is what feels most authentic, which path has the greatest sense of heart and truth in it, and take that one. Usually it's the harder path. Usually it's the more difficult path, but that tends to be the judge that I apply. Um, I just was reading an article today or yesterday that was talking about the fundamental requirement of a CEO is to effectively balance risk and resources in order to achieve a goal.
Mhm.
And we needed to align our name in order to be able to effectively balance our risk and resources.
I think, in retrospect now, almost 10 years on, clearly what you and Dan and the entire team came together on was the right vision. We are an experience-driven industry. We're a people-driven industry. The technology is a facilitator of experiences. The technology is not an end result in and of itself. I like to say that integrators are memory makers or storytellers or smile generators. That's all about the experience the technology delivers rather than the connectors and the speeds and feeds themselves. They're just means to an end.
Yeah, listen, I mean, and thank you for listing others than me. And I want to add one more to that is our board, because none of this would have happened without a strategic and forward-thinking board. I remember as we went through discussing this, and internally the staff had been working on it for months, maybe even a year or more, but we hadn't really gotten it baked to the point where we felt like we could present it to the board and share it with them and get their buy-in and agreement and or get their correction from it. And I remember at the time, in particular, I'll call him out from a name perspective. Jeff Day was in the room and he's like, "Do you understand what you're talking about? Do you
Yeah.
understand what you're coming up against to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think we do. And I think we're ready and we've lined up the resources and I think we're ready to do this." And then he literally stood up and he's like, "Well, then let's do it." And that kind of spirit in our governance is part of why we are where we are today.
It's boldness.
It
And
is.
recognizing there is risk, there is potential downside, but saying this is what we believe and we're going to be bold and embracing it. I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Speaking though, shifting a little bit from the positive to maybe the more challenging times, I'd love to hear your thoughts about navigating the pandemic. I have to imagine leading AVIXA through COVID-19 must have been incredibly challenging. I know back in the days when I was wearing a different publisher's hat, we asked about our shows being canceled or they're not being canceled because of the pandemic. I'd love to learn some lessons that you took in during that time, how it shaped the association's approach to events, to community engagement, to making sure that you are relevant to the needs of the community as they exist in a moment.
Nobody will ever let me just completely crossed that out of my memory. Um, and it did change me. You can, if you want to have fun, Dan, take a picture, take a look at some of the headshots of me pre-COVID and post-COVID. It feels like I went through some sort of, and I probably did in some ways go through some traumatic experiences.
Yeah, all of us
There
actually.
was, it was a existential challenge for AVIXA. At that time, over 90% of our revenues came from trade show events, and clearly none of those were occurring. And beginning in 2020, we actually were not able to deliver a full portfolio of shows again until 2023. We were impacted by it for 3 years as it moved across the globe. Ironically, the first show that came back was China, and the last show to be canceled was China
Mm,
because of the sort of the approach in China with regards to zero COVID and early successes against the pandemic, which drove a return to events, which then at the very ending of the pandemic showed with a shift in strategy from the government moved towards a cancellation of the final event. I talked about authenticity. I talked about oftentimes the hardest challenge to face. Couple, I don't know, maybe anecdotes from it. Early on, I talked about with my team, with my staff, as we worked our way through and navigating different things. One, it was so amazing to see this unification of the organization around killing the dragon that was at the gates. There's such a unification of team. We all go through these like, oh, we need more collaboration, we need team building, we need this, we need that kind of thing. When you come right down to it, what makes or breaks an organization is one, at the beginning, trust, and two, a shared purpose. And there was no ambiguity about the shared purpose. There was no like, well, I want to make sure I grow this trade show. Well, I want to make sure we get this certification launched. Well, I want to make sure we grow membership in, XYZ country. There was we have to survive, and it threw away all those boundaries. And it was an amazing part of being a leader to be able to then take that united strength and be able to direct it. So that's one reflection from it. Second was, now what do we do with it? I just talked about risks and resources. Um, in my head, I created a model pretty quickly that I had to balance three competing at times or complementary um, areas of demand.
mm,
One was serving an industry that was significantly disrupted and being true and authentic to being the industry association and supporting and nurturing and facilitating the survival of the overall industry. So that's one piece of the job. The second was keep AVIXA in business as a solvent business, which is totally different, right? Like we
sure.
could have thrown all of our resources at, I don't know, uh, a $200 stipend for every unemployed live events professional.
Mm,
But we would have bankrupted AVIXA pretty quickly in that situation.
right.
But I needed to protect the association. It was, 75-year association. Certainly wasn't going to let it go bankrupt on my watch. And then third, and none of these have precedence, right? They're all equally critical. Third was the health, well-being, and capabilities of my team. And how do I best, everybody's terrified. And, in the early days, you have to think back, we were terrified about, are we going to die? Like, what's going
Yeah.
to happen? Is this, the movie that we've all watched? And and so balancing and shifting, and you couldn't take care of all of those things every day. And managing through that was pretty intense. It was very intense.
Yeah.
We did get through it. Um, I certainly wasn't the most popular person on the planet through much of it. I remember somebody sent me a meme. If you want to be popular, sell ice cream for a living, or if you want to make everybody happy, sell ice cream for a living. Um, uh, and there are challenges that I face. There's things that I still don't understand how sometimes we as human beings can get so mean to each other.
Yeah,
And I wish that didn't happen, but I'm far less idealistic than I was in 2012. Final thoughts on that. Part of how I can choose to let 26 be my final year is the strength of the team that came out on the other side of that storm, is the strength of the business that came out of the other side of that storm, is the fiscal health and well-being of the association. All of those things have not only recovered, but we're so much stronger and better than we were in 2019. And it gives me comfort to feel like, okay, I can walk away
yeah.
with good conscience. Um,
You, yeah, you've been through the cauldron. You've been tested by fire, and you have come out stronger and leaner and really robust on the other side. You've done everything you need to do to optimize the association, and as you say, you have the opportunity now to step into the next phase of your life, the next phase of your career, and you've left the organization optimized to test not only for great times, but also for challenging times to optimize to deal with either one. And I think part of that is the legacy of your leadership.
Thank you. Yep. See, you're so much
So
more succinct than I am. It would have taken me an hour to say that.
let me just ask one more question if you have time, and I don't want to hold you up too long, but I know there's a robust process going on right now to find a successor for you. It's going to take place over the next several months. Is there a piece of advice, a piece of wisdom, something that you would share with the individual when she or he is selected as they step into this role, lead AVIXA into its next chapter? Anything that you would share with them when he or she is eventually named?
I hadn't thought about that, Dan. It's a good question. I have to write that letter, right, and leave it in the top desk,
Yes.
except for the fact that we're a remote company now, and I'm not sure there is a top drawer in a desk anymore.
The
Um,
metaphorical top drawer, yes.
yeah. I don't know if there's unique advice I'll give to that individual. There's advice I'd give to any individual in a new role of responsibility, which is be you. You you got this job and you got it for a reason. I am another reason why I'm comfortable with transitioning now is the strength of the board and the group that will make the decision of selecting my successor. It's it's an unequaled, and those words are easily overused, but it is an unequaled collection of talent within our industry. And I am 100% confident they will make a good choice. And I would advise whoever that person is to know that really smart, capable people chose them. And when things get hard and tough, lean on the fact that they were picked for a reason. And the reason was because of who they are and what they bring into the room. And be that person. Um, I surely hope it's not like David 2.0. I'm so full of anticipation of seeing where this thing and this industry go next. And
Yeah.
I, I, you know, I think they'll be surrounded by people that have their back and have their best interests and want to see them succeed. And I think it'll be it'll be a it's a it is a lonely position, Dan, but it doesn't have to be a isolated position. And I
Yeah.
would, I guess, say, you know, let the village help you. Let the village
And
help you.
And the team you have around you is, of course, fantastic, from Dan to Sarah to Joey to Crystal, just incredible people. So I think that's great advice. I guess the other piece of advice I would give is when you're expecting the call, make sure you're not in a dead zone. Make sure you have a good, solid landline, good cell phone connection so you can accept the offer. But thank you so much, Dave. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for going through, again, the good times, the bad times, the ups and downs, but it has been a fantastic multiple, 10 plus year tenure leading this association, transferring it from Infocom International to AVIXA, reimagining the vision of what integration can be, not just about technology, but about experiences and about memories and about changing society. Thank you for all you've done, and I look forward to seeing your next chapter, whatever that might be, and of course, seeing who your successor is. They have big shoes to fill, but I know they're going to make a great choice.
Thanks, Dan.
All
Appreciate
right.
all of the times we spent together.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you in Barcelona, of course. Thank
Yes,
you again
sir.
so much, Dave Labuskes, CEO of AVIXA, for joining me today. Of course, Commercial Integrator will be covering the entire process as AVIXA finds its new CEO for when Dave retires at the end of 2026. My name is Dan Farisi. I'm Group Director, Content and Editorial, Industrial and Tech here at Emerald. And we will, as I say, be all over this story in the months to come. Again, thank you, Dave, and we will talk soon and see you in a few weeks.